Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the afternoon session. I'm Amy Leister. I'm the Vice President for Business and Workforce Development at the Greater Scranton Chamber of Commerce. A couple of housekeeping items. Ladies' rooms are out in the hallway. Please silence your phones. And surveys will be sent out tomorrow morning after the conference concludes. Okay, it is my pleasure to introduce Jenna Urban. Jenna is once immersed in suits, now thrives in sweatpants. She's the owner of Urban Mac Media, spent 17 years teaching before transitioning to higher education. She pivoted towards family businesses. She owns Law & Order Landscaping and LMJ Sheds. Her online journey started back in 2009, where she was doing money-saving blogs and amplified her media presence in local newspapers, live TV segments. She's a fierce advocate for local business and side hustles. She is an expert in marketing, consulting via email, and content creation. I'm dealing with bifocals these days, so you have to give me a little bit here. Jenna co-hosts Soul Sisters podcast with her sister, where they empower their audience with relatable stories of women in leadership roles. Jenna has an associate's degree from Lackawanna College and a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from East Stroudsburg University. This is a fantastic woman. I've known her since she was a young girl to transfer to this professional woman in our community. So with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Jenna Urban.
Well, thank you all for coming. Oh, let's turn this on. All right. We good? Okay. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate the support. Like this afternoon, I was getting some messages from friends and family, just encouraging notes. And it was funny because my husband sent me a little note that said, good luck today, you'll do fine. So if you know my husband, or if you have a spouse the same way, that was the most encouraging thing that I could hear from him. So finding purpose, we're hearing that theme go a lot today. A lot of people are talking about how to find purpose, and we kind of treat it as though we are driving by a lottery billboard, like once I find it, I'll hit the jackpot. We also treat it as if I was Dorothy looking towards the Emerald City, right? Once I get there, I'll find my purpose. And some might define purpose as an exercise to reflect on the events that happen in your life and understand the meaning behind them and how they shape us to who we are. But what if it's not in the meaning that defines us, but the stories that we tell? There's such power in stories, and as humans, we're natural storytellers. Whether you're sitting around the campfire, around the boardroom, in the classroom, talking on a podcast, or heck, even standing on a stage, we connect with people through stories. And I'm often, taken back when I ask people to be on our podcast, and they tell me, well, I have nothing to share. As women, we say that to ourselves, right? What can I share? And we have so much to share. We need to be taking up more space with our stories. And as I think about stories, one of my favorite stories is The Wizard of Oz, right? But it's not the exact story that I like. It's the meaning behind the story. And we often don't know the unseen hours that go into telling a story. And a few years ago, I was able to be introduced to a documentary. I love documentaries. I love books. I love learning about people. I love learning the unseen hours, how things were put together. And years ago, I came across a documentary about Frank L. Baum, who was the writer of The Wizard of Oz. And Frank Baum, just like many of us, always felt like he was made for more. And he went through his life, and he had traditional, he had to raise his family, so he went from job to make ends meet. But he always told these stories to his children and to their friends. And he always added on to the stories. And it was in those unseen hours that as he told the stories of people that he met in his life, they became the characters of The Wizard of Oz. And I often reflect on that because my story sounds very simple, right? I was basically teaching, and I decided to leave my teaching job to work our family businesses. But when we make those changes, almost like a cyclone, we don't know the meaning behind them. Just like when we hear a story about someone, there's so much that goes into the behind the scenes. So, as Steve Jobs once said, you can only connect the dots by looking backwards. And here are my dots. So when I was 18 and I graduated from high school, in my yearbook stated that one day, Jenna Machako would be president of AOL. I loved AOL. Do you guys still remember your AOL screen names? Loved it. I was such a junkie. I was always in the chat room. I was fascinated by it. So it's ironic that my classmates saw that in me. So I went to East Stroudsburg. I went into the communications department. I loved learning again how the impact of media and advertising and just learning the placement of different commercials and how they affected women and so forth. But when I was going into my senior year, I had to do an internship. And my internship was, I was for a PR company, and I remember that summer going into work 9 to 5 every day. And at lunchtime, I remember checking with my friends who were like sitting by the pool, and here I am not wanting to go back, like trying to figure out excuses, like how can I just like not go back after lunch, skip out, and go to the pool. And at that point, I made a pivot and decided maybe I should not be working 9 to 5, and I would go to the traditional route of teaching, right? Having my summers off. My father was a teacher. He was always with us. And my mother was a phenomenal mother, very present. She always worked her schedule around ours. When we were little, she made sure that she was home when we were home and so forth. So I knew that I wanted to be that type of mother. But there's not many boxes that check that off. So I thought, hey, I think I'll stay in school and become a teacher. So the fastest route for me, because I was a communications major, was to get a teaching certificate in communications. But again, I still loved all that technology. And I knew that I wanted to do something in tech. I really wanted to be a computer teacher because I loved the Oregon Trail in grade school. I just wanted to go and hang out on the computer all day. So what happened was I stayed in school. I got the quickest degree that I could get, which was a public speaking communications teaching certificate. And it was the last one that they did from East Stroudsburg in that degree. And then I got my master's in IT. So instructional technology, so then I could teach computers. So what happened from there was, I met my husband, and he was a photographer for the Scranton Times. Now at this time, we were both hustlers. We always had something on the side. When I was student teaching, I was waitressing. He was taking photos of cars on the side, just to put on the website for the Scranton Times and so forth. We were always hustling. I always traded my services as well. I remember going to the Y and pitching them, hey, if I teach basketball lessons, can I have a free membership? And kind of trading off. So we've always had that hustle inside of us. And so at this time, my husband, again, he was Scranton Times, I was a teacher. He decided to go into the state police. And he thought he would use his photo skills to do forensics. He's never taken a picture of my children, a professional picture. I pay for all pictures. So since then, he's not touched a camera. And during that time, he started, again, side hustling. Cutting grass for people here and there. And once we had our first child, he kind of had more time to do that as I was taking my maternity leave and I was home, and he would work on bigger projects. And throughout the years, we were fine. We were checking off all the boxes, traditional family. And after I had my second child, I had, we had to decide about going back to work right away or taking the maternity leave. So I took my maternity leave, and again, at this time, my husband was working like swing shifts, and then he was also going and doing landscaping at night, so it just made sense financially. If I went back to work as a teacher, I would basically be paying for childcare. So we decided that I would take my 3 months. I had 2 years to take off as a teacher with every child, unpaid, of course. So basically, I was home, and I was kind of feeling like, this is it. Like, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, every day I remember waiting. I would hear the bus at 2:30 and know that 3 o'clock my mom was going to stop by just so I could have a conversation with somebody, right? So at the time, I remember around Christmas time, I really started we were struggling because we went down to one salary. Yes, he was hustling and doing some landscaping jobs, but it was the winter, so we didn't have that extra income. And I remember I was like so obsessed with like finding different deals and coupons online, and I started following different blogs. Now this was in 2009, that Christmas, and I really got into following all these bloggers. And at one point, I remember after Christmas, and I was still sharing the deals. Like I would like text or send messages. I don't know if texting was too big at that point, but send messages to my family, like, you got to check this deal out, and so forth. And I remember after Christmas thinking, why are they still sharing these deals? Like, what is up with that? So what I did was I emailed one of the bloggers that I followed, and I said, like, hey, like, just out of curiosity, like, why are you still sharing things? Like, I don't understand how this works. Because to me, blogging was like an online journal, right? It was like sharing your diary. So after she got back to me, she was very good. And then I started following some other bloggers as well. But what she said to me was mind-blowing. She was like, oh, I make money off of this. I was like, what? Tell me more about this, right? She explained affiliate marketing and so forth, and I thought, well, jeepers, I have some tech skills. I think that's something that I could do. So I went to work, I started researching different things. Now, my tech skills were in instructional technology, not really HTML, but at the time, it was like Blogger was a big thing, so I really didn't need to know much about HTML. So I did some research, started a blog, thought it was going to be like a local thing, just started sharing deals, learning more about affiliate marketing, again, connecting with other people. Then I got into like the networking aspect, getting invited to go to conferences. So my 3-month maternity turned into a 6-month maternity, which turned into another year. So I was off for those 2 years doing my blogging, and it really got me out of the house to go to these networking events, right? Like just to meet with the meetups, whether it was a local meetup or if it was a national conference. And from there, I had another child. Go figure, I'm home. So from there, I remember I was still blogging. I had some help because I created this network of friends. And at one night, I remember when Facebook first came out, I came across a post about a new show that was going to be PA Live. The news station was going to air this new news show. And I thought to myself, well, jeepers, like, I'm already like bargain mom here. Let me send them an email and see if they would like to do a segment. So that's exactly what I did. I sent the producer an email and I said, hey, I have a great idea. Now, I've never been on TV, so I really didn't know what I was getting into. But I have this great idea, like Tori Johnson, she's doing all these deals. Like, hey, how about we do a segment? And they were like, they would take anything at that point. They were like, sure, come on, let's do it. So I was able to, for about 1.5 years, go to Wilkes-Barre every week for an hour. It was like my out. I couldn't wait to get out of the house, right? I have like a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I went down every week and did my segments. And then I started monetizing off of my segments, right? I was like, how can I make money off of this? So I would go to these conferences and I would pitch them, like I could write about your stuff, and then I could also like maybe put it on TV. And so then I started doing segments with products that I was being paid for. And then I started kind of reaching out to more people. I would reach out to the newspaper, like, hey, how about an article? Like, would you like me to write an article for you each week about saving money? And they were like, sure. So I made some connections, started writing, then got some more TV segments, like morning segments with WNEP at the time with Lecky, and I became very good friends with Ryan, and I kept that relationship going over the years. But then it came time, right? So now here I am. I'm like living this dream of basically like I get to like sneak out of the house, make some extra money. I was teaching couponing classes, and it was really just for that connection. But my maternity leave was up. It took my 4 years, and at the time, I kept thinking, how can I possibly give up my teaching position to do this thing that was just like new? Like, how am I going to be a blogger, right? And I had everybody in my head, like, you can't leave your teaching position. Like, do you know what we had to do to get you that teaching position? And, all those outside sources telling me different things. So I went back to work, and life kind of, I was busy. I had, 3 young kids. My blogging, I didn't have much time for it because the deals expire. And then I kind of tried to pivot into, maybe mom blogging and doing events. And I did do some family-friendly events, which I really liked doing. And it was more like for my kids, like we would get free tickets to go to like Sesame Place or Hershey. So I would like write a post about it and share. I really think I was like the OG influencer in our area. I mean, I know influencers like big now, but that was like 2009 when like influencing wasn't even a thing. But like as moms, we're influencers, as women, right? Like you're sitting in a doctor's office and you're basically telling somebody like, oh yeah, like I recommend this person, and that's who you want to hear from, right? So I go back to work, I'm like, trying to keep up with everything, and I was just really busy, so I had to kind of like push that away. And over the years, it kind of weighed on me. Now, my husband at this time is still building up his business, and he's getting busier and busier, basically because I was home doing everything else. But it was great. He is living out his dream, and here I am going back into the computer room, teaching home row typing, day after day, almost like I'm on this hamster wheel. So over the years, and probably in 2019, 2018, I really started thinking more about purpose. And like, what is my purpose? Is this what I have to do for the rest of my life? And I would talk to other teachers, and everybody had a countdown of how many more days that they had left. And I thought, how can I live? I have like 15 more years left after my maternity leave? If so, like, I just wasn't feeling it. And COVID hit, and we went virtual. And I was put in charge of our virtual program. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh my gosh, that's like terrible, but I loved it. I was like thriving in it. I was back in my element. I was like, creating things. I felt like I was back in my blogger network, and I loved it. Once COVID, we came back into the classroom, they put me back in the classroom, right? I was like, oh my goodness. So then, again, I'm questioning, what am I doing here? It was a pivotal moment when I had a kindergarten student have an accident on the chair sitting on the computer, and I remember that moment thinking, I cannot do this for 15 more years, right? So I had these conversations with my husband. Again, he's building up his empire, and I'm still supporting him because, like, hello, I was not only doing the stuff around the house for the kids, but I was the marketer. I was doing his marketing. I was helping him. So I was always involved with the business, even though it wasn't full-time and I wasn't on the pay scale. So I really started thinking, what can I do? What kind of skills do I have? But I have to have an out, because people would think I lost my mind if I just left my teaching position. Now, this is like September, October, right? First couple months of school. So I went right on the computer and started looking and thinking, maybe I should like teach at the college level. I contacted one of my old professors, and she was like, Jenna, you're IT. Do you know what we do for IT people at the college level? She's like, look for IT jobs. So I found a job. It was like written for me. It was like working with faculty and creating, and it was my dream job. And I thought, well, this would be a good excuse, right? If I told people I was moving to higher ed, I could get out of the elementary school. So, and at that time I was teaching K through 6 computers. So it was kind of like all day long I was just different kids, and my own kids. I had my own kids in school too. Don't do that. Okay. So I found this job, and I decided to pivot, and again, it was 9 to 5. But I thought my kids are older. I could totally do this. Not thinking like my husband still has a busy schedule, the landscaping business. So I went at it. I gave it 90 days, and unfortunately it didn't work out. It just was not working for our family. And it made me think of, like, what was I craving the most, or what did I like about my blogging and even the virtual school days? And it was the flexibility, right, in the schedule. And I remember thinking, like, well, there's so much flexibility out with remote working. Like, I could do something else, right? So that 9 to 5 gave me flashbacks of my PR summer job, and we decided as a family, putting our family first, that I would leave. Now, at the time, we had expanded into putting a few sheds on our landscaping lot. Sheds, like she sheds, right? During COVID, she sheds were a thing. So we started selling these sheds, and I remember people joking like, oh, are you teaching summer school? And I was like, oh no, I'm selling sheds this summer. And then I was like, holy cow, these sheds are selling. So we expanded our shed lot, and it was a lot. So during this time of the transition of me leaving the higher ed, we had decided, well, I'll just jump full into the shed business and help out with the landscaping business. So that's exactly what I did. And it was a challenge at first, getting used to the schedule. We expanded our shed business, and I remember my daughter saying, like, how am I gonna tell people that you sell sheds? And I was like, tell them that I'm an entrepreneur, right? So that's exactly what we did, and we adjusted our lifestyle in order for us to put our family first. Now, I still have this like feeling of like doing more, right? What is my purpose? I'm still going through this. My purpose is obviously not selling sheds. Is it landscaping? No, I was still doing all the marketing and email newsletters I love to do, being creative and so forth. And then about a year ago, I had a friend reach out to me. And so my sister and I, back up a little bit, we had dabbled in podcasting a little bit. Basically, I came across a flyer when I was teaching that was like a workshop on a Saturday for podcasting. So just like anything, I dove right into it, learned about podcasting, and then we just started it. I was like, okay, we'll research it, I'll do it. I've got some tech skills. So we jumped into it. So anyways, getting back to my story of, gosh, now I can forget where I'm at. So I left, and we started doing our podcast a little bit. My friend had contacted me, who I used to blog with, and she said, hey, my husband has a client looking for someone to edit their podcast. Would you be interested in doing that? I was like, what? People get paid for that? I was like, I was just doing it for us. She's like, no, like they'll pay you every month. I was like, okay. And she's like, oh, by the way, can you do some of their marketing? And these are skills that I forgot that I knew how to do so easily. So I started doing some of that. And then in the meantime, I started pitching myself to other clients as well. Like, hey, do you want me to do your email marketing? Like, I know how to, create funnels and do things like that. So I was able to get a couple of clients, and I was able to bring my urban media back to life. Finding that purpose and feeling a little bit more purpose. Now, there were definitely obstacles, right? Just like when Dorothy was going on the yellow brick road. The monkeys, there were the witches. There are people in your life that are going to challenge you and make you think you can't do it. There's child care involved, right, for all of us, and everything that we go through in our journey. One of the biggest obstacles is not only, as I talked earlier about the stories that we share, but similar to what Patricia Banks was just saying about the stories that we tell ourselves. And Kendra Hall talks about this and how we can choose to change those stories. And as I look back at my journey to get me where I am today, a lot of that is changing the story that I told myself. For so many years, it was, I can't do that. I'm a mom. I can't leave my kids, like having that mom guilt Or like, how can I do that to my husband? He's working 2 jobs. I'm not good enough. I'm not trained in that. Like all the things that we tell ourselves. And as I'm, learning all these new tools over the years, there are things that I'm telling my kids as well. The stories that we tell ourselves really can change our whole life. And just like anybody would say, like really there's some days in our life that it's all about our dreams, but other days it's just about putting one foot in front of the other, right? You just got to keep moving forward. And that's what I did in my journey. I didn't think really like the fact of blogging, like I just went for it, right? I connected with the people that I needed to connect with. Just putting one foot in front of the other, one step at a time. Now, when I reflect back on the habit that I created, it was learning something new, to do something, connect with somebody, and repeat. Because we're all looking for these hacks in life, right? But a hack becomes a habit, right? And habit becomes routine. So as I look back at all of the steps that I've taken, I've learned something new, and then I would do something about it. Right? I would listen to podcasts, I'd go online, I'd watch videos, teach myself how to do something, and then connect with people that are already doing it. And this is something that Ken Coleman talks a lot about. He's part of the Ramsey Solution. He's a great resource if you're wondering about finding your purpose and thinking about life change and career change. But to learn something new, do something about it, and connect with other people that are doing it, and repeat. Surround yourself with good people. Okay, you want the cheerleaders in life. And again, those people that you're telling maybe like, I can't do it. You want the people that can tell you, yes, you can. You totally can do it. You've got this. Because the people that you surround yourself with, they say that you are like the highest level of the 5 people that you surround yourself with. And we all think of the people like, like if I thought about it, it would be like, okay, so I'm the best version of teenagers because that's who I'm with all the time. But it's not really as much as people that you're with face to face, but even the people that you're connecting with online, the people that you follow, right? So, and those are things that, again, I'm trying to pass down to my kids because they're lessons that I'm learning. So putting the boundaries around, like Dr. Herzuri said, about social media boundaries. Who are you following? What type of information are you letting into your life? Okay, you want to connect with people and follow people that inspire you, that don't trigger you to have, other feelings. Now, as we go through, finding our purpose, and even when I think about my journey, one of the things that I came across recently, and it's something that I've really been implementing in my life, is, we're all juggling so many balls in the air, and they're not really like, 5 balls. There's like 55 balls because every ball has like 5 or 6 balls that go with it. But if you think about, and this is actually Nora Roberts, who is an author, is the one that came up with this concept, but I'm just so intrigued by it. When you think about glass balls and plastic balls and all the balls that we juggle, if you have the mentality that some are glass and some are plastic, and recognizing which ones are glass that you cannot drop, right? Those are your non-negotiables. And sometimes you may have to put down a glass ball or hand that off, right? For another glass ball not to break. And sometimes it's okay to drop a plastic ball because it's going to bounce back up, right? And that looks different every day. One of the exercises, and I'm going to share with you, I have a workbook that you'll be able to download. One of the exercises that I recommend is listing out all of your priorities and then putting a G or a P next to it and then separating those. What are my glass balls? What are my plastic balls? What are my non-negotiables, right? And then going from there. And guess what? Every day is different. For me, sometimes it's like every hour is different, right? And when we talk about priorities, we can't talk about the fact of trying to find that balance. And so many people talk about finding balance, again, almost like finding purpose. Like, what's the secret to balance? Like, there's none. There's no balance. There's no work-life balance. There's, like, especially with families. So if you treat it as though it's a blend, and every day's different, right? How many of you make smoothies? Any smoothies? Okay, so you're never going to get the same smoothie. It's like almost impossible each day to have the same smoothie. You know, some days you have a little bit of extra peanut butter in it. Some days you got more protein powder. Sometimes it's a little milky, and that's okay. You blend them differently according to the season that you're in and also what the day looks like. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, that's great. That's wonderful. You found your purpose. You're up on stage. You know, you got to leave your job and so forth, and you had this great journey. But I want you to think about that little girl. Like I think about that 18-year-old that was so into tech, right? The AOL junkie. But when I was little, I was a saleswoman. I was the little girl going door to door selling rocks to my neighbors. But it was just because I really wanted to talk to my neighbors. I loved that human connection. I would sell penny candy down at the corner for 2 cents. You know, all the paper routes. I loved going and meeting new people, and I loved the idea of money and what it would do for me. So think about, did you have pigtails? Did you wear your hair back? Did you like to dance? Right? What did you enjoy doing that you're not doing now? And what could you start doing? Now, here are some of your power tools that can help you try to figure that out. What are you good at? Okay, what do you love to do? And what results do you want to have? So for me, I'm good at tech. I'm good at marketing. I'm good at connecting people. So those are skills that, you know, I'm starting to pitch more people with, right? What do you love? What fills you up? And what results do you want to have in the end? Is it to leave your career? Is it to pivot? Or is it just to do something for yourself, right? Amy Porterfield, who is like a digital marketing genius, she wrote this book called 2 Weeks Notice. And in the book, you know, she gives an outline to if you were planning on looking for a different career, how you would leave it, and having like how you would kind of implement a side hustle and so forth, right? So what she had suggested was to put a date to it, whether if it's a year from now or 2 years from now, right? If you put a date and you look at it every day, so you have an end date in mind. But you can't just manifest that. You have to do things about it. So what are you learning? Who are you connecting with, right? You got to put the steps in. It doesn't just happen. Time is our most precious resource. When are you going to find the time to do this? At what time is it okay to make a pivot or to try something new? You don't want to wait till it's too late, right? And time, when I have conversations with my kids about time, they'll say, how can we find more time? It's impossible to find more time, but you have to make the time, right? Make the time to do the little things each day. So here are 3 things that you could start today. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one and how I manage my time around it. So mindfulness. We hear about mindfulness, and some of us think like, I cannot even like stop my mind from going, right? And I thought the same thing. So what did I do? I started with a 1-minute meditation. Then I started with a 5-minute meditation. Then I went to 20-minute meditations. And you know what? Some days I only do 5. Some days I have time for 20. Some days I have time for 1 minute. But it's just doing the little things and being mindful of how you're going throughout the day. Connections. We crave human connection, right? Who I mentioned before, who you're connecting with. Okay? My husband jokes with me because I love getting out with people and going for coffee and just hearing their stories and talking with them. And I love trying to connect other people as well. There's such power in connection as well. Journaling. Now, going back to Frank L. Baum, writing The Wizard of Oz, he had all these stories in his head, right? And I remember his wife in the movie handing him an empty book, like a plain book, and said, here, write them down. And that's exactly what he did. He just wrote the stories that he was telling for years. And in his stories, all of the characters were people he met in his life. And he just wrote them down. So it's practicing that journaling, whether it's one sentence or if it's a book. Now, you could do that by just taking 10 minutes a day, right? And if you say that you can't make the time to do it, that means it's not important. Because if you could schedule 5 to 10 minutes, what are you doing? How much time are you spending on your phones, as we talked with Lauren Hazuri before? Okay? If you sub out that time and you take 10 minutes to do something that would move you forward, something you enjoy doing, it doesn't have to be journaling, it could be anything. Put it on your calendar. Make it reoccurring. Make it known and put the boundary up. Like, hey, every day at 9 o'clock, 9 to 9:10, don't bother me, right? My 10 minutes, whether you're connecting with somebody, whether it's sitting on Google and doing a Google search. And that creates a ripple effect. Not only with other people seeing you do it, like, because then people want some of that, like, what is she doing? What is she doing for 10 minutes a day? I think I might do that. But also in your own life. Because when you start to take responsibility and do something for yourself in one aspect, you're going to carry it on to other aspects of your life. 5 years ago, I was really into Rachel Hollis. How many of you like Rachel Hollis? She was big. I don't know. Okay, Amy's got me. So at that time, when I was watching the backs of everyone's head typing home row in my typing course, I remember writing this down in my journal. And what I wrote down was a 5-year plan and a someday. But I broke it down into what I needed to do today, what I needed to do a week, what I need to do in the month, what I need to do in the year, my 5-year plan, and my someday goal. And if you look at the top, it's hard to see, but it's May of 2019, that was 5 years ago, that I wrote this down. And what I have there is I want to leave my teaching position to inspire young girls or women, to stand on a stage and inspire thousands of girls and women. And although I'm not there yet, that is my someday goal, but I'm taking those little steps every day, putting myself out there, being here today. And it's not just a manifestation, it's an action that I put into place. Because over the years, I've learned and I've put the time in to craft my purpose. Be more, not do more, right? We're a hustle culture. Everything's like do more, do more, do more. And I did go through a time that I thought, doing more was better. I was like wearing all these hats and glorifying the hustle. And it wasn't until I kind of took a step back and decided to be more of who I am. Be more present. Be where your feet are, as Oprah says. Right? To be more. And as I look back on the journey, right? It was never about getting to the destination. It was always about the people that I met along the way. The lessons that I've learned, the people I connected with, the knowledge that I gained, and putting myself out there more and more. And just like Glenda said to Dorothy at the end, you've always had it in you, right? You just had to learn for yourself. And I know that I always had it in me, and that I could change the stories that not only I'm telling to everyone, but also the stories that I'm telling myself. And I know that you do too. So get out there and tell your stories. Thank you. I do have, if you want to scan this QR code, I have a workbook of all of, you could download the worksheets that I talked about. I also have included in there my favorite books, both like business, personal development books, podcasts that I listen to, and then some of those worksheets that I talked about. Please reach out to me on my website. If I can help you any way, if you have any questions, you could book like a 30-minute call with me or a Zoom call. I will answer any of your questions and anything I could do to help you on your journey through the Yellow Brick Road.
Before we let Jenna go, we do have time for like one question or so. If anyone has one, now would be your time. And if not, you can follow up with her afterward. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.